Hey, this is Yasuki Wolf, and welcome to Japan Quest live stream, the monthly streaming podcast thingamajig where we talk about my experiences living in Japan and working in the creative fields of illustration and game design. So for this week, or not the week, this month, I guess, for this month's topic, I'd like to talk about a new real-life achievement that I have unlocked recently, and that is an iOS game release. Yes, I have released my very first full-blown iOS game in Japan, not in America yet. America's coming, but it is released in Japan. And I should probably just clarify that this is Archetype, and it is not owned particularly by me. It's owned by the company that I work for, Skishima Factory, also known as Moon Island Factory. But I was the original concept for the game came from me. I am I have been the lead game designer for it for the last year to year and a half to 2 years, depending on how you look at it. Describing my other videos, how the first year was mostly the board game, and then after that we started doing the digital game. But yeah, anyways, it's I've been probably one of the main forces behind the decisions in the game. Although I will say that it has not been 100% me, because working with a team and working also with being the first big project within our company, there was a lot of push to do certain things into certain ways and everything. So I'll go a little bit into that in a little bit later. But for now, I just want to talk about my feelings and my impressions about finally releasing a game on the Apple Store. So it was while I'm talking, I'm just going to flip through these screenshots from the game as well. This is the home screen where you get access to all the different parts of the game. But so how should I say? I wonder if I could put this on a slideshow, if it will actually work. Yeah, it does. Okay, awesome. Okay, so it'll just be on a slideshow. So what was I saying? So we finally released it on the iOS, and it was probably a bit. This is way too fast. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can adjust the speed of this slideshow. All right. Size Hyoji. That's the size. Upload. There's gotta be settings for slideshows, right? Settings. File. User interface. File case key. So user interface? Nope. Web camera? Nope. Was this 1.1? No, that's not it. Upload. Yeah, I don't see anything that tells me how to adjust this length of the slideshow. Well, that kind of sucks. Oh well, anyways, we'll just keep it how it was then. Where's my Dropbox? Okay. Well, anyways, sorry about that. So it was a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be, actually. Releasing the game. So we applied for Apple probably about like 3 or 4 times. There's a lot of little issues that came up while we were applying. Like they say, the first time, I think there was an issue with it's not working on an iPad, and then there was a second time there was an issue with the memory, the necessary memory for the game being too large. There was just a lot of little things, mostly programming type things. There was never really any issues with the game itself. It was just a lot of things with how the programming was set up for the game, and so that was a little. It was a little bit more involved than I thought. There wasn't a whole lot of work on my end in that, because I'm actually not a programmer. I'm more the planning for the game, and how you say, like and like I did some 2D designs and illustrations and textures for the 3D and stuff like that. But so like there wasn't really a whole lot of stuff for me to work on in that area. But there was a lot of like testing that needed to be done, because every time that we would apply for Apple, we would have to play through the quests in the game to make sure that there weren't any bugs that were going to come up. Like if we sent it to Apple and then maybe there was a bug that would prevent them from being able to go through the tutorial, or would like make the game stop at a certain stage or something. We had to check to make sure there weren't any bugs, and so that became part of my job of doing this sort of debugging. And so every time we applied for Apple, I would have to play through a sizable portion of the quests and make sure there weren't any bugs and whatnot. So that was quite a bit of work. It's not the worst work in the world, because you can kind of just turn on like a video or something and just play through the game for like 6-7 hours while you're at work. So it's not the most strenuous work in the world, but I mean it does kind of get kind of straining playing through quest after quest after quest. I think if you could ask anyone who does like debugging for a living, it sounds like the best work in the world, because you get paid to play video games, but then it's not all fun and games, because there's a lot of just like testing out things and trying to figure out to where issues come from. Like if there's a bug, that's the other thing. If there's a bug, you can't just say like, oh, this part didn't work right. You actually have to like figure out why it didn't work right. So that you spend a lot of time like, okay, maybe it's because this character was in this screen at this level, so I'll try that and see if it works with other characters. And then it didn't happen with that character, so it has to be that character. And it's like, oh well, maybe it's because this character was standing on this particular tile. That's what made the bug happen. But basically, you have to find the exact conditions that will reproduce the same bug again. So that can be quite time consuming sometimes. But yeah, so we applied like 3 or 4 times, finally got through, and now. So now we're releasing the game, and we went through the whole game. There was no bugs. I thought everything would be fine. Then we released the game, and apparently there were some other programming issues. So I'm not a programmer, so I don't really know exactly how all this works. But like because it was working perfectly on the build before the release, but for some reason when they released it, I guess the build changed somehow, because when it turned into like the real build, the one that like actually people will use, something changed where all of a sudden it wasn't working anymore. So we released the game, I think on like a Friday, and on Friday we tried to download it and play, and we couldn't. It was the game was what's the word? It was crashing at the home screen, where at the beginning screen of the game. And so luckily at that point we had released the game, but it wasn't actually on, how you say, we didn't have the search keys done, so even if you searched for it on the Apple Store, it wouldn't come up. So it's not like there was a lot of customers that were trying to play at that time, but we had said that we were going to release by the end of the month. So it was kind of like, oh crap, what are we gonna do? So we had to like request for Apple to have like a have like a last minute review, like a fast review at the end, and re-release it again the next day. So they got the programming stuff fixed out, and then they released it again the next day on Saturday. And so then we released it, and it was a pretty good release. We think last time I checked, we have about like 5,000 people or so playing, and probably a bit more than that now. But yeah, it's kind of interesting, cool to see there's that many people that are actually playing the game. But unfortunately, when we're looking at the comments, now the thing is, our rating out of the Apple Store last time I looked was like 4.5 stars, which is actually really good, more than I was expecting. I think it's 4.5 out of 5, right? But if you look at the comments, a lot of people are complaining about really long loading screens. And I think that's, again, is part of the programming issues. This company that I work for, it's the very first time they've done a full-on release. So I think there's a lot of stuff that they weren't able to foresee. Like once again, this really isn't stuff that I'm dealing with because I'm not a programmer, but I'm just kind of like seeing it as it goes down. That like they had to like change a lot of the programming and make the memory a lot smaller and do a lot of things to try to fix the loading screens. And that's something they're working on now, and I think that they've actually decreased it a large amount. But that was just another issue that came out where like a lot of people were like, oh, this game's loading screens are way too long, and I have to wait. It's too much time loading the game and stuff like that. And then but then the cool thing is, like, if you look at the comments, there were some people that were saying, "Oh, I really like this game, but the loading screens are long. I'm hoping it's just because it just released or something, and we're looking forward to it in the future and stuff like that." So there's a lot of positive comments too. So that was pretty interesting. But yeah, so it was kind of, I was kind of always assuming that, like, the day that you released the game, it would just be like, "Oh yes, we did it," and you'd feel all great and happy about it. But I think there was just so much little like plugs and, like, what do you call it, little like challenges that we had to overcome even after releasing it, that you never really had that feeling of like, yes, I did it type of feel. Like when you're playing a video game and you're on the last stage and you finally beat it, and when you beat the last boss and it says you did it, and then you're like, oh yes, I beat the game, and you have that, like, that really euphoric feeling. I was never really able to get that because just because there was such a long process of releasing it, and there was always something else that came up, and so there's like never really like this feeling like, oh, I'm done. Like we spent a lot of time working on it, and we were going to release it, I think, in January, but that didn't quite work out, so we ended up releasing it at the end of February. But since we were planning to release it in January, like, I was in that mode where I was like, okay, I'm going to finish the game in January, and I was in that mode for a full month or so. And then even after releasing it on Friday, we still had to re-release it on Saturday. And then even after we released it on Saturday, there was still issues with, like, the loading screen and stuff. So there never was that feeling like, okay, I'm done. Like, there was never really that point where you knew you were finished. It was more just like always kind of being ready for the next thing to do. But now, I don't know, now that things are kind of running and stuff, I think this is kind of a point where I can kind of reflect on what it was like, and more so how I feel right now, having completed and having gotten this game out. And it's kind of a lot of mixed feelings, I have to say. Like, it's really kind of unreal still. I don't think it's really hit me that much, like, because I was expecting it to be like more of like a like rush of like joy and stuff, but it's still kind of mixed feelings where, like, I still don't really know if I really feel like I'm done yet. Yeah, I still kind of have that feeling like, oh, there's probably more I have to do. There's probably this or that, and there are other things that I am doing, and I'll go into that later. But for like right now, I just wanted to like express that it's kind of cool that to have something that you kind of thought about and envisioned over a number of years to actually come into shape, and to actually then have it released to the masses, and having upwards of 5,000 plus people playing a game that you designed. It's a pretty cool feeling. 5,000 is really not that much. We actually want to get quite a bit more, but for me personally, I mean, on a business level, 5,000 is not that much, but on a personal level, like, as just me as a guy who just had an idea, to have 5,000 people playing a game that you thought about, or that you imagined, it's pretty cool. It's the first time it's ever been able to do that. I don't think we have like 5,000 players for the analog, for the board game. So, and it all just happened very quick too, where it's like one day no one's playing your game, and then the next day you have 5,000 plus people playing your game. But honestly, I think that the point where I felt the most excited about the game was probably the first time that we had the actual game ready, where you could play through quests, and I sat down with the game at my work and played through the quest to check for bugs. And I think that was the most exciting part, because it was the first time that, like, you saw something you imagined actually coming into like a physical shape. Before then it was always just like concept sketches, prototype like sketches and things like that, and even the 3D like map that they had made for the game. It was just one map that really wasn't actually made with any progression or anything. It was just making sure that functions worked, like a character could move and all that. So the first time that we had the actual game with like multiple quests that you can kind of progress through, and of course this is before we released it. This is like months and months before we released it. But that first time when I played through it there, and I was like, oh crap, this is actually a game. That was probably the most exciting point, even more so than the release. And I think that's kind of surprising to me, because you'd expect the release to be the bigger, like I released the game. That's the like really big point. But I think it's just that there was so much work leading up to the release that by the time it releases, you're kind of, I don't know, you're kind of like burned out of the game in a way, because that first time playing it, like it was really fun for me to play through my own game. It's like, oh crap, this is cool. This is a game. But then after playing through it for, I don't know, 3-4 times while in production and changing stuff, you get so used to your game that you stop really being able to have that like fresh kind of feel to it, like where you look at it and you're like, oh, this is a fresh new thing. It's like something like it's just now released to the world, but you've been messing with it for like months and months, and you've been going through the quests and everything for months and months. So it kind of becomes hard for you to have like a fresh to look at it with like a fresh mind anymore. But yeah, so that's pretty much like what it was like for me for releasing. And there's still a lot of work to be done. Like this is one thing I was kind of would have liked to have had a little bit more of a break, because like it seems like we just released it and then we're still kind of really busy, because we want to get a PvP mode and Android release and English localization and a lot of stuff done in the next couple months. So like there's always so much more. There's just more work always to be done. And there's never really like a point where you can just relax. Plus, we want to work on some other like game designs as well. So, still very, very busy. But it's gotten through one. We've gotten past one big hurdle. So it's kind of nice to be able to say that I've released my first iOS game. And I guess the next achievements on my list for my in real life achievement unlock list would be the Android game release. So we got iOS down, next would be Android. And then after that would be, I guess, the worldwide or possibly just America. I'm assuming it's going to be worldwide game release. Because right now, I guess technically the achievement that I unlocked this time was the Japan iOS game release. Yeah, I still have to do the abroad, the worldwide game release. But that should be coming soon. So yeah, I suppose that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I'm going to continue to have this sort of open thought stream podcast type thing once a month. I'm also going to probably bring some guests on every once in a while just to keep more of like a conversation type flowing to it. I think it's going to progress it's going to evolve into being more of like a podcast type show. Where we'll have like different segments and things. Like maybe first we'll talk about like what games we've played, and then maybe we'll talk about like what kind of achievements we've unlocked in our real life. This sort of like the kind of idea I'm kind of testing this week, where it's like what have we achieved this week or this month, and then like maybe talk about a topic of some type of question or something. So that'll be how Japan Quest will continue going, and then once every 2 weeks. From now on, I'm going to be releasing non-live content, where it will just be either like a manga workshop where we'll be teaching you some of the many things I learned while going to a manga school in Japan. I spent well over $1 million yen or so on education in a manga design school in Japan, and it was way too much money. So I'm going to teach you the stuff that I learned for free, so that you don't have to go to an overly priced manga school. So that'll be the one. That's one type of video, and the other type will just be straight illustration tutorial type videos. Because just in case this is your first time watching, I work professionally as a game designer, and I also do illustration in my same professional work that I do right now. So I do a lot of computer illustration and so forth. Manga, I do not do professionally, but I did study it for 2 years in a Japanese manga school. So I kind of know more or less how the manga industry works here. I also was trying to become a manga artist for those 2 years, but I decided to change. I ended up changing my mind and going to gaming instead for reasons which are outlined in one of my other videos. But so that will be all for this month's episode of Japan Quest. See you again next month for the Japan Quest, and in 2 weeks for some tutorial manga or illustration tutorial content. Till next time, yoroshiku.